All right, hi. Thank you so much for meeting with me today, and welcome to STS's Success Talk series. I'm Leah, and I'm the Peer Success Coaching Graduate Assistant here at Binghamton. I'm so glad to be able to have this discussion with you and showcase more resources available to Binghamton University students. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Emily Meyer, and I'm a peer success coach. I'm also a junior double majoring in philosophy, politics, and law, and Spanish with a minor in health and wellness. I also am a group fitness instructor at the East Gym. So that's just a little bit about me.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So it's really nice to have you here today. We are going to be talking about study skills. Do you want to just share a little bit about what this topic means to you?
Yes, definitely. So, study skills is a pretty big topic that we work with at students at Success Coaching. And I feel like I'm at a place in my college career where I have developed a pretty solid set of study skills. But I definitely had to adjust them when I made that transition from high school to college, just because my environment was changing. I found myself having a lot of distractions with friends in my dorm. And I also found myself taking a lot more difficult classes than those I took in high school, and also classes that were a lot more different because I found myself writing a lot of papers and doing a lot of projects rather than just studying for like a weekly exam. But studying is definitely something that takes some time to work on, but once you do, it can really help you gain a richer understanding of the material you're learning.
All right, and I think you kind of hit on this, but I'm going to go a little bit more into depth. So what are your go-to study skills?
So my go-to study skills first would definitely be the Pomodoro technique. This is something that I've been using for about the past 2 years. And the technique is basically that you study for about, or you do an assignment, any kind of academic really related thing for about 20 minutes. And then you'll have a 5 minute break. And then after that, you have another 20 minutes of work and another 5 minute break. You could also like change the times to whatever makes you feel most comfortable. And I've used a website called pomofocus.io. And I started using this as a study skill because I found myself getting very, very distracted, mainly with my phone and social media. So knowing that all I have to do for 20 minutes is work has made it a lot easier because I know once those 20 minutes are over, I'll have a break to do something, but it helps me focus on one task at a time.
Awesome. Do you have more that you wanted to add on that?
Yeah, I was also going to add that not really a study skill, but a tip is that it's super important for me to find a good place to study. Like before, I mentioned that I get super distracted. So back when I lived in a dorm on campus, I've tried doing work in my room, and that was something that did not work for me and still does not work for me in my apartment off campus. It's just not a good environment for me to do work in, especially which was something that I struggled with during COVID. So I really prioritized finding a place to study on campus. Some of my favorite places to go to are the fourth floor of Bartle, which is a super good environment for if you're looking for something quiet. Or I really like the Innovation Lab in Bartle also. So just finding a place that's going to set you up for success and not a place that's surrounded by distractions is really important for me also.
Thank you for sharing. So you mentioned that you're a junior here. So you've had some time to kind of develop your study skills. How did you develop these here?
So I briefly mentioned that I definitely had to adjust my study skills when going from high school to college. And I think that in high school, I developed a really good work ethic. And I was kind of forced to because I was involved in a lot of extracurriculars, which meant that I didn't have a ton of time for my schoolwork. So I had to prioritize the time that I did have and get the most out of that. And then going to college, I also found myself getting involved in a lot of extracurriculars because I like being busy. So that just means I have to be super effective at studying when I do have the time to do it and make sure that I am setting aside the amount of time to do it and not being too overwhelmed with other things. So just knowing that you have a certain amount of time and setting those chunks aside is one way that I develop my study skills. Another is that freshman year, I wasn't taking super difficult classes yet. and I had a lot of distractions. So I knew that I needed to prioritize my schoolwork and find things that worked for me. So I did try out doing work in my room, doing work in the study lounge on my floor in my dorm, and I found that those things didn't necessarily work for me, and that's okay. Not every skill that like I work with as a success coach helps students, but that is why we go back to the drawing board and find things that do work. So I just went back and found things that did work for me. Also, I would say that finding study skills that work is really important so that you have time to do other things with friends and extracurriculars and making time for things in your life that do bring you happiness and things like that.
I love that. I definitely agree. Finding your like perfect study environment is a little bit of trial and error. I like to joke that when I was an undergraduate here, I studied in every possible spot on campus because I was trying them all out. So my next question for you kind of goes along with this trial and error a little bit, but does how you study vary based on the classes you're in?
Definitely. So back in high school, I got very good at studying for tests and memorization and making flashcards and rewriting my notes. But because I am a PPL major and a Spanish major, all the majority of my assignments are papers or essay based exams. So those skills don't necessarily work for me anymore. And that's where I had to go find things like the Pomodoro method, where I give myself like 20 minutes to work on a paper or 20 minutes to kind of jot down some kind of writing points for an essay based exam. So that definitely affects how I study. For example, this semester I'm taking a nutrition course for my health and wellness minor, and that's a very different course than what I've taken throughout most of college because I haven't really taken any science courses. So I kind of had to draw on some different kind of study skills. And I went back to using flashcards. I'm a big proponent of memorization. So, like, just redoing flashcards and filling in a study guide I made definitely helped. So, I also think that when it comes to like success coaching, um, also finding a coach that maybe aligns some with the academics that you are interested in can definitely help. Just they might have different perspectives.
Yeah, awesome. And I think that this actually sets us up really well for my last question for you, which is sometimes classes do throw curveballs into your academic routine a little bit and you have to adjust. So when you're struggling to find how you're going to study the best, what are some resources you can think of that helps with that?
Well, definitely success coaching would be one of them. But next, I'm a big advocate of going to office hours. Even when I was taking Psych 111 my freshman year, I remember that was like my first exam that I took when entering college, and I didn't do so great, and I was discouraged. But I went to my professor's office hours, and we looked at my exam, and she helped me give me some study skills because she realized that I was doing really awesome on the textbook questions, but lacking a little bit on the questions that were lecture material. So just going to the professor really helped me adjust how I needed to study because I realized for that specific class, I needed to focus a little more on lecture. So that was an example of how going to office hours helped me in a more science-based class, but going to office hours in general can be really awesome just for getting professors to help you out, whether it's with math questions or science topics, but also if you want a professor to read a draft of your essay, that can immensely help how you do on the paper in the long run, and professors are more than happy to help you out additionally. I think Binghamton has a lot of good resources that students don't always know about, including the Speaking Center for projects and the Writing Center for essays. And there's also the Critical Thinking Lab for philosophy papers. And these resources are here for students. There's always appointments available. And I really think it's important to advocate to yourself and just make the most of those resources that Binghamton offers us.
All right. Well, thank you, Emily, for sharing all of that. I think that there's some really good insights here about study skills. And for anyone listening, if you're interested in talking more with a success coach or with Emily or me or another person in our office, we would more than love for you to set up an appointment and we can talk more about study skills here at Binghamton.
Thank you for having me.